Hello, everybody, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live. Today's topic is from burnout to blooming, making employees feel valued. My name is Tatiana Sinikovic, and I am an HR advisor and a leadership coach. I help leaders and the organizations navigate change and challenges with focus, clarity, and ease while knowing consciously where to place the next step. And my guest today is Gianni Arrington, the head of people and culture at Ketone IQ, where she passionately advocates for enhancing employee experiences and fostering a thriving workplace culture. With a deep commitment to people centric strategies, Gianni drives initiatives that promote employee engagement, development, and well being. Welcome, Gianni. I am excited you're here.
Thank you for having me, Tatiana.
It's such a pleasure. Gianni and I go way back. We used to work together actually at Esalen Institute. And then it's been such a delight and joy watch her development and growth in all different ways. And so it's such a pleasure having you. And that topic to me, when I thought of the topic, because I think of topics every month, that was definitely, I was like, oh, it's Gianni. She really always thinks about how people feel valued. How do they know that they're appreciated? Like, how to connect all those dots. So, you and I are going to jump into a couple of questions and then see where that conversation kind of how we follow it. For everybody who's watching, take a cup of coffee, tea, enjoy it. And if you have questions or comments, please place them in the comments kind of section of the live and we will see them and I will address them as we go. We would love some of your participation. All right. So I want to start with why do you think employees are so unhappy these days? Which actually we have data about that as well. So you could dive
Yeah,
right in.
there is a lot of data around that. And right now, with the way that our working environments have changed recently, being remote or hybrid, not having a lot of those in person touch points, but beyond that, there is a blurred line between being at home and being at work. You don't have those natural boundaries of, okay, I'm at the office, now I'm working, I'm leaving my computer in the office. It's all right there in one place. And for a lot of people, it's hard to set those boundaries and to be able to distinguish this is my working life, this is what's happening at home, and my personal. Your computer can be dinging all night long. And it is this kind of integration of knowing how to navigate it and balance it. And I feel like that is one of the things that make people pretty unhappy right now is just
Yeah.
having those blurred lines. Um, yeah, another thing too would be without, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but without those in-person touch points,
Mhm.
you don't have those relationships with your coworkers like you used to have. I remember my first job out of college going into the office and just being friends with a lot of people and having those in between conversations about what's going on at home and your friends and events that are happening in your life. And now you don't have those in between spaces. It takes a lot of energy and intention to create those. And even when you do have those, it's not the same as it just happening so naturally. And so those for me are the two big things that stand out about employee happiness today.
I completely concur with you. The two big pieces, and I think the blurred lines. It always comes up. It really happened, kind of like the impact of COVID, and as everybody went remote, and like all work happened all the time, and then finding the ways of how the hybrid work environments work now, or do people go fully back into the office, or they're fully remote, or there's a combination of all of those. I think we're still learning and growing with that piece, as you're saying. And every single one of us has to work with our own boundaries, like literally
Mhm.
our own personal boundaries within the organization as well. Because sometimes the organizations are very clear. I have a client it's so fascinating, same industry that she changed jobs, but completely different actually expectation of when you close your computer and you're done with your work. It's the same high level leadership, same expectations of the goals and the inputs, but everybody in this new organization are like, no, we are done like by 6 p.m. Nobody's working in the evenings, like nobody, like your weekends are yours. And it is such a mind whirlwind for her in a way of going, wait, how do, plus it's her own work as well, to not just go to work directly, meaning anything that needs to get done or doesn't, or we feel things, we tend to go something that's a default to not do it or feel it. So we go to work, we do work, we just open the computer, open the phone and email, and we just succumb to that behavior. So that's absolutely, as you're pointing to a couple of those things, I completely concur with that. Um, what are some key strategies that you use to ensure the employees feeling valued within your organization, or even the previous ones you've done before, just because every organization is different?
Yeah, it's big and small things. Everything matters. And so currently some things that we do at Ketone IQ are celebrating birthdays and anniversaries. We use Slack for all of our internal communications. And so whenever it's someone's birthday or work anniversary, we post in a public channel. And throughout the whole day, people are trickling in, happy birthday, happy 2 years. And it just has that sense of community and inherently that sense of value and connection to the company and the rest of your team members. Some other things too that I've done in the past have been recognition programs. Those are always really fun and kind of bring everyone together to celebrate one person. When I was working at the YMCA, it was a huge organization and we did an employee of the month and they would get a prize and we would write a little recap about them and some of their key accomplishments and send it out to the whole organization. And those types of things where everyone is coming together to celebrate the person, it can be so small, but it has a big impact. And then another piece too, on a more individual level with managers, ensuring that managers are checking in, that managers are equipped with the tools and knowledge to check in effectively and give them feedback, acknowledge them when they take that feedback, when they grow, when they make changes. Those things are very important as well. And those happen at the one-on-one level. And so a key piece there is just ensuring that managers know how to navigate a one-on-one successfully. They know how to give feedback. They know how to recognize when feedback is taken into consideration, and things are done. And so, yeah, I think too, just the little things, they all add up so much. And so as much as possible at Ketone IQ, something that we do, we have a weekly question that we have at all hands where we start our all hands with the question. And so every other month, I'll make sure that I cycle in a question about who's someone that you want to shout out, things like that. And it really goes farther than you might think because people, when they're recognized, they can see the impact that they're having on the rest of the business. Sometimes as you're going through your regular work responsibilities, you don't realize the impact that it's having on other team members. And so when people have an opportunity to casually and naturally bring those things to light, it really does make you see, oh, what I'm doing here is making a difference and impacting these people directly.
No, these are all so true. And I personally know you and worked with you, and you're definitely always looking for ways to recognize people, but also give the right tools. Like you pointed something out that I want to highlight is that there's an assumption, and it's an assumption, people, that I'm learning through my work, that managers know how to give recognition, how to give feedback, constructive and positive, how to have the check-ins organically. They don't, unless they learned it somewhere, unless it's a skill, unless it's their own, like it's a combination of things. So before assuming or before thinking that we should all know this, or it's the same for everybody, check in with them. So if you're a director and you have managers, it's a trickle down. However you are an organization, however flat or not, check in for things that really make a difference. Check with the others if they understand it makes a difference and what tools they might need. And as you point out, is that though all of those small things that's actually what makes the biggest difference, because they all add up over time. And so as we, as we can work through with different employees, and it's like, yes, compensation is important, absolutely. Benefits are important, absolutely. But those are bigger pieces in the organization. But how you do check-ins, how you care and connect with your staff and your peers, and if you're you actually in your boss, how you do feedback. Is it always constructive feedback? If it's always constructive feedback from a point of view, it comes across, it's that's all you see, which we already have a negativity bias as humans. So only having that and not having the acknowledgement of, hey, you've done something really good. And it doesn't have to be big. But in that regard, make it specific. When the person is showing up a certain way, even they don't think about it as a special way, just because that's the way they are, you recognize in them that they always follow up with somebody, right? Or they always, respond in a timely manner, or they really care. You see them really care about people. Whatever that is, make it qualitative, make it specific, so then that person actually knows what kind of behavior resonates with you. So on a normal on a psychology level, it's like they can, if they, if they choose to create more of that, but they also know that it's not just because they do it all the time. And I don't think we even think about things that we just do regularly, or like that's our zone of genius. That's actually what it is. It's like we just do it because we do it. But it's when people point it out that we notice it matters, to somebody. And so that qualitatively makes a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes to beyond when you're acknowledging something that someone did. I feel like a lot of the times we'll say, thank you, or you're the best. And just taking that second to say exactly why. Thank you so much. This saved me time because A, B, and C. And so that's a little thing that we can do as HR professionals, as managers, as team members to ensure that the rest of our team feels valued and recognized.
Exactly. And you just gave exactly very specific, lovely example. But also, as you said about the all hands that you do, and the question is, what's the intention that you are trying to bring? And I think for every leader, and actually everybody working together, but leaders just have a lot more impact a lot of times, because there's people reporting to them, and therefore their behavior is more noticeable, but also is followed, whether good behavior or challenging behavior. We okay that. But as a leader, as you're saying, you pay attention to that. There is every couple of months that there's a question about a shout out to somebody or recognition in some way. So that's for us as leaders, is like, what do we hold? How do we hold actually the point of value in your staff in various levels, whatever levels of the organization you are? If you have nobody reporting to you, it's your peers. It's, trust me, the ones that you report to, a lot of times they have the least appreciation and recognition. And they're human. Everybody's human, and we do all like to feel valued, and recognized and seen. So just because you're at the top, or several people at the top, it can be lonely. And first of all, and second of all, helping them see that what they're doing matters as well to the whole organization, and you're connecting all of the dots. I think it goes a long way, a long way, and makes a difference.
Absolutely.
And the part about value, I also wanted, it's like, it always comes up in this whole, well, at least in my experience, and you and I worked in the organization, in our department, we had three generations at least, out of not a large department. And so I know you and I talked about this topic, but in every organization now, unless certain selectively, like it's a certain industry that certain generation tends to be more attracted to, or has the certain skills, or navigating it together, there's different generations in the workplace. And I think And now there's research also shows that these days we have like 5 or 6 generations. A lot of times in the workplace, it's like the biggest generational capacity that we held in one kind of work environment, which can come with its beauty and wisdom and all, and all of this growth that people have done through their lifetime. And it also can come with challenges that I wanted you and I to talk about, because every generation has their fundamental, like what matters to them, how they're built. Yes, we're all individuals, and there are certain historical events that shaped certain generations. There's kind of events before that generation. There's technical, as the tech world developed, there's all of that shaping the generation. So the part that I wanted to talk to you about, like the Gen Z. And Gen Z is pretty, it's definitely it's been talked about quite a lot. And I just want to point out that that's the generation that's about right now today is from 12 to about late 20s, 12 to 27-year olds. And so it's about the birth year is 97 to 2012. That's a generation that's called digital natives. That's a generation that was already born into all of the digital pieces that those of us like me did not have to navigate or deal with or learn or constantly adapt to. And so that's the part about this generation that I wanted to talk to you about, because I know you and I had definitely conversations about it, is what do you find unique characteristics of Gen Z employees should your organizations consider when developing strategies to help them feel valued? Because I can tell you that's very different than baby boomers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Something that stands out to me is a lot of Gen Z people in the workplace, their social lives stem from work. And so when putting together strategies around valuing Gen Z employees, it's important to include those elements of getting people together in person, because that's really what they crave. They want those in-person touch points, those in between. And so even while interviewing, if I'm interviewing for a more entry level role where it's going to be a candidate who is Gen Z, they're asking me, how often do you get together in person? What do you do outside of work? Do you host any events? Do you have any clubs? And so that is something that really stands out to me. Another would be social impact. Social impact and DEI. These are both really hot topics right now. And the benefits and things that you can do to support Gen Z employees can range from offering volunteer work hours to having some kind of club, or just sharing opportunities to do things that will have this big social impact on their community, whether it's with coworkers or it's something that they can go and do on their own. Feeling like their personal values align with other people's at the companies and the company mission is huge and very, very important. And then the other thing too, flexible working hours. There is this shift where everyone is working, but you also want to be able to live your life and have your summer and do all of the things that you want to be able to do outside of work. And so something that Gen Z employees really value is having those flexible working schedules. And so now it's very common to have flexible working hours. As long as you're attending your meetings and getting your work done, it doesn't matter if you're doing it at 9 p.m. or at 5 a.m. It's what works for you. And so that has a really, really big impact on employee satisfaction and just retention, even having that flexibility. The travel piece too, a lot of Gen Z employees love to travel. And so being able to choose between hybrid or fully remote and being able to take advantage of that and actually be working from somewhere that's not just your kitchen table or your home office. I definitely see a lot more Gen Z employees taking advantage of the remote work where they'll be calling in from a different place every single week. Whereas maybe some older employees, they're always at their home. Remote work to them is working from their home office. And so even that has a different definition to employees of different generations.
No, you actually, so you kind of, I just realized you brought some things together. Like we're talking about, so the Gen Z piece, the purpose, like how are my values aligning with the organization? So that's definitely really big. The part about the social impact in DEI, I definitely see it. It's like, yeah, what is this? It doesn't matter if the organization is nonprofit or not, but what is the, like, why are we doing the work we're doing? And how do we create a better world? Even if it's the organization is not directly doing that, like their product is not directly, you can't tie it together or something. There's still, you got to still speak to that desire. And I completely agree with you. It's like providing the volunteer opportunities, which really matter. The one thing I smiled when you said the flexible working hours. And I was like, oh, there's a whole, like, we just tagged all of our questions, is the flexible working hours. It's exactly like they're very big on overall, just like, okay, if I can get my work done, I've got to go and sprinkle. But we come back to our first question, as we were talking about, that it can also go overboard if people don't have very clear and healthy boundaries for their work and life. One way. The other way, the leader could be of different generation and looking at things differently, or the demands, like there could be a spillover in every direction. So what I'm tying this to the question number 2 is what we're talking about, is regular check-ins, the regular conversations. Yes, the conversations we were talking about is about appreciation and acknowledging somebody, but this is kind of tying together. When you have people, especially, I mean, it works for everybody well. So that's a caveat. However, we're talking about Gen Zs now. If you're having flexible schedules, the other part of it in a regular schedule is that you could be working all the time and sprinkling, or you might not be getting your work done. So yes, it's on every single leader to know what the expectations are, or what does it mean to get the work done. What's the work? Because a lot of times the work just never ends. So what's doable, what's meaningful, but it's also what's the capacity. But also working with every staff member of yours to be like, hey, what's the flexibility, as you said, and like summer is summer. What happens, like how do we celebrate summer and maybe spend more time traveling, but still being able to plug in. Like I'm working with the organization right now, and there are some systems that they want to implement. And I'm pointing out to them as like, yes, but you have people away right now, understandably, but don't think in the same way of doing things as you did at the beginning of the year. You've got to wait a minute here for kind of people to get back, versus just planning as normal. Is how can we actually pay attention to the desires of others, the seasonality of some things. Actually, depends on the organization. Some things could be there's a flux and a flow, and how do you work with that? And I think the foundational thing that you and I always talk about is communication. It's kind of like, but knowing what's important to your people, no matter what generation they're from, as people, as human beings, what's important to each individual. And I think that, that's something is to pay attention to. Anything else that pops up for you around this topic?
Yeah, I think connecting the first question and the last question, what's making employees unhappy, and then the question specifically about Gen Z, there's this phenomenon within Gen Z culture of fear of better options, fear of missing out, and FOMO, yeah. And with these different work environments, you have fully remote, you have hybrid, and then you have in the office. No matter what, there is going to be oh, but if I could be fully remote, or if I was in the office, or if I had a hybrid, like it always seems better that the grass is greener on the other side. And I feel like having kind of those options and then hearing from your friends who are going into the office or who are traveling and are fully remote, there's just this like feeling that it could be better because now we have these different options.
Yeah, I think the option piece. I mean, I could speak to that with having a Gen Zer of my own at 17 years old. It is like, well, what about that? And what about? I was like, well, pick one right now, and then think what works for you or what doesn't. Experience it fully, and then and then see what's negotiable if that's something needed. Because this FOMO piece, it is endless. There's always going to be a feeling overall that the grass is greener somewhere else, until at some point maybe you try it. But it's not always greener. However, it does has to match. Like the things overall, as I work with clients, is that everybody, like your values, your core fundamental values, they do, no matter what generation you're actually, like it has to match with it has to be in alignment with the how the organization is out in the world, internally and externally. Because if it's not, trust me, eventually it's not going to be congruent, and it's not going to work for you. And you're gonna, people do different things. It sometimes can lead to burnout. It can lead to all kinds of the dissatisfaction. And so I don't want that to go unnoticed, that it's just Gen Zers for whom, which they're very strongly set with their values and how those need to match. Like the work is not separate from who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Where some older generations, they just kind of, there's different other aspects. There's loyalty, there is just getting the job done. However, it comes the point when it's like, wait a minute, something is not working. So I want to keep that in mind, is that, yeah, there's FOMO. We all have it in some way, but that generation is definitely, I mean, this generation is having a much stronger pull towards it. And so when that happens to you at work, and they, for example, decide that this is no longer what they want to work, don't take it personally. Because they just got to go and explore. And I have that definitely generational piece, where older generations tend to stay longer at a positions, at least, generically speaking. And the younger generations are like, no, when something is definitely not working for me anymore, I'm going to go and look and explore something else. And I've heard people sometimes be like, oh, youngers, like they don't stand. I said, they've committed your year or two to your organization of their life. That's decent. That's actually, that they've done that. And so that's their life. They can go and explore further. It doesn't have to be all, in one place. So those are the most important things. So as we wrap this up, are there any couple of key takeaways that you would like our audience to just kind of plant a seed for them?
Yeah, we've talked about it a few times now, and I just want to reiterate it, but ensuring that managers are equipped to have effective one-on-ones and to be able to communicate employee value, give feedback.
Yes.
They have such a big impact on the employee experience. And so all the managers out there, you have all of your responsibilities, but a big one is managing your team and your direct reports. And so that would be one. Another is just calling out that everyone is different and every employee is valued differently. As a people leader, what you can do is have those check-ins too. You can also have check-ins with your team members. It doesn't just have to be managers and direct reports. And so that's what you can do on the organization side to check in with people and kind of understand how people function within your organization.
Those are perfect two ones that I absolutely, fully align with. I just also wanted to add one more, is you mentioned it in one of the things you were sharing, is that sense of connection. And that sense of connection, how exactly, just what you're saying, you don't have to be manager, you don't have to be a leader, either direction, to create a sense of connection and foster it with your peers within your organization. If that's something that matters to you, I've always said, then explore it. Find a ways to connect with those that you work with, because we still spend a lot of time working. So how do we nourish, foster, and create that sense of connection? That's one of my values. It's like one of my strong values. So that's definitely, I notice that everywhere I go, or like everywhere I work, that's important to me. But it's also, as we spoke and you mentioned, it's like Without that sense of connection, hybrid, in person, or fully remote, doesn't matter how we work, that always goes back to, do we feel connected enough to each other and the organization for us to be thriving versus just to do the job or just show up somewhere? And so think for yourself, no matter where in the organization you are, you might be running your own business. How do you create that sense of connection? So on that note, I would, the one thing I know, I asked you what your favorite books were, and you actually gave several. And I wanted, I wanted to share it with everybody because I thought these are, I actually read a couple of them, but not all of them. So I'll put on my list. But favorite books of Gianni is The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, Radical Candor by Kim Scott, and Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. So everyone, hopefully you enjoyed this. You have your takeaways. We planted some seeds. You have some fun books to look into. And we will see you later. Thank you so much.
Thank you.